All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to demystify one of the most important and maybe one of the most intimidating documents you'll ever write, the research proposal. We're going to break it all down step by step so you can take that amazing idea in your head and turn it into a project that actually gets a yes.
Oh, that blank page. We've all been there, right? Just staring at that blinking cursor, feeling completely overwhelmed. But listen, a research proposal isn't just a hurdle to clear. Think of it as the actual blueprint for your entire project. Getting this right, that's your first big win. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why this document is such a big deal. Then, we'll get into the fun part, finding your unique research gap. After that, we'll build the basic skeleton of the proposal, flesh out each section, and finally, we'll cover the common mistakes so you can dodge them. Let's do this. First up, let's be really clear about why your proposal is so incredibly important. It's not just some piece of academic busywork. It's your #1 tool for planning and, more importantly, for persuasion. At its absolute core, a research proposal is an argument. You're trying to persuade someone, whether it's your supervisor or a committee with a checkbook, that your project is worth doing, that it's relevant, and, crucially, that it's actually possible to pull off. So what's the secret sauce? Well, a really great proposal does these 4 things like a charm. It locks in on a crystal clear research question. It shines a big spotlight on why your idea is fresh and original. It explains exactly what it's adding to the world. And ultimately, it convinces the experts that you've found a real problem and you've got a smart plan to solve it. Okay, so we get why it matters. But where do you even find that killer idea? Well, it all starts with finding a little patch of unexplored territory. In the academic world, we call that a research gap. A research gap is basically a question nobody's answered yet, or a puzzle piece that's still missing. It's a spot on the map of human knowledge that's still marked, "Here be dragons." Finding this little space is what makes your research not just interesting, but absolutely necessary. So how do you actually find one? Well, there's this fantastic practical method from Grad Coach called friend hunting. It's a ridiculously efficient way to pinpoint a gap. You start broad, your general area of interest. Then you grab a handful of recent articles. The key here is you're not reading them from top to bottom. No, you're scanning them strategically, hunting for one very, very specific section. And this is it. This is the whole game. You're looking for the FIRN, which is short for Further Research is Needed. You'll usually find this at the end of academic papers, and it's where researchers literally tell you what needs to be studied next. They're basically handing you a list of potential research gaps on a silver platter. It is an absolute goldmine.
Okay, you've struck gold. You've found your gap. Now what? Now you need a structure, a skeleton to hang your brilliant ideas on. And the good news is, pretty much all research proposals follow the same basic blueprint.
And here's that skeleton. Doesn't matter if you're in science or the humanities, you're gonna need these parts. Just think of them as the chapters in your story. You've got the intro, the backstory, the plan of action, and all the evidence to back it up.
All right, let's put some meat on those bones. Now, every single section here is important, but let's zoom in on 3 of the trickiest and most critical parts to get right: your literature review, your methodology, and your timeline. Your literature review is not just a shopping list of books you've read. It's an analysis. A really great way to tackle it is with the 5 C's. First, you cite the key work to show you've done your homework. Then you compare and contrast all the different arguments to really map out the conversation that's happening. Next, you critique the ideas. Which ones are strong, which are weak, and why? And finally, this is the most important part. You connect it all back to your project. This is how you prove you're not just a spectator, you're ready to step into the ring. Next up, methodology. The big decision here is often between qualitative and quantitative. And honestly, it all boils down to your research question. As you can see here, if you're asking why or how, and you're planning to explore ideas with interviews or observations, you're in the qualitative camp. But if you're asking how many or to what extent, and you're going to be using numbers and statistics, well, that's quantitative. Your method has to be the right tool for the job.
A timeline. This might seem like a small detail, but it's huge. It proves your project is actually doable. You have to show you've thought through the practical side of things and that you have a realistic plan. Breaking it down like this shows the person reading it, hey, I've got this under control. I know how to get this done. And for our final section, let's talk about what not to do. Seriously, even the most brilliant idea can get shot down if it's presented badly. Knowing these common traps is maybe the single best way to make sure your proposal gets that green light. The #1 reason proposals get rejected? A total lack of focus. If your research question is way too big or super vague, nobody can tell if it's even possible to answer. It just kind of looks like you haven't really thought it through yet.
The fix for this is simple, but it's not easy. You have to be ruthless. Narrow your scope. Get laser-focused on one single manageable question. And then use a statistic or a real-world example to prove that even though your question is narrow, it's really important.
The next classic mistake is a literature review that just floats there. You know, it lists a few studies, but it doesn't connect the dots. It fails to show how all that previous research actually leads to your specific project. That's a huge red flag.
And the solution here is to be blunt about it. Don't make them guess. After you discuss the study, explicitly say what's missing. Your literature review should build a rock-solid case that ends with the unavoidable conclusion, and that is exactly why my research is needed right now.
And the third major pitfall. This one hurts because it's usually the easiest one to avoid, but it sinks so many good proposals. And that is simply sloppy writing and presentation.
Look, a typo or a grammar mistake might not seem like a big deal, but to a reviewer, it screams, "I don't pay attention to detail." And if you're not careful with your writing, they're going to wonder if you'll be careful with your research. So please, for the love of all that is good, proofread. Then have a friend proofread it.
So, at the end of the day, try not to see your proposal as a chore. It's not. It's the first chapter in your incredible story of discovery. It's your chance to map out the adventure you're about to go on. So the only real question left is, what story are you going to tell?